Welcome to Tanked Up, the podcast about video games and beer. I'm Ben, here with Lucy.
Hi, evening.
Hey, here with Aadil.
Hey!
And here with Dave. And Sean.
Hello.
And I'm going to go home an hour and we're joined by Dave and Sean from Pillbug Interactive once again. Hey.
Hi. Thanks for having us back.
No problem, no problem. We've got you back because, as we talked about a
We
few
like
weeks
you.
ago, well, that's very true, yes. That is why we have you
Good
back.
start, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got you back because the game we were discussing a few episodes ago, Making It Home, has come out in early access.
That's correct.
It's available for everybody to go right now and play.
Yes, indeed.
Well, part
Everybody.
of it, not all of it, part of it, right?
Yeah. That's correct, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a really weird thing to tell people, right? It's out, but it's not. It kind of, yes, out, maybe.
Nice. We will get into all of that in a moment. Let's open some beers. First casualty of the evening, Lucy. Your beer is still on the shelf, unfortunately.
Still warm.
So,
Sadly.
you're going to be smashing back the water.
And some tea. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Good. Dave, we'll start with you. What are you drinking
dear.
first this evening?
Okay. Well, actually, can I ask the experts a question? If I have...
They're not here. Sorry.
no, you're my only experts. This is it. This is you guys. Because I've been trying to get up my beer game, having been on the podcast a couple of times now. So, if I have a hazy pale ale, okay, and a hazy raspberry sour, should I drink one of those before the other?
I would say the pale ale.
Start pale ale? Okay.
Yeah, just because the sour's gonna usually they linger, and so your first few sips of the pale ale are gonna be sort of overshadowed by the lingering sourness.
Okay.
Also, I'm guessing the sour is more ABV, but I might be wrong.
No, the pale ale is 5%, and the the raspberry sour is 4.5. So it's a light sour, I guess.
They're similar enough ABVs
Sure.
that it's not going to give you too much of a big hit and spoil the other one. I would suggest the pale first as well. As Aadil says, maybe with the sour, it's just going to have that lingering flavour which will affect anything you have. So.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping the combination isn't some kind of unholy, beer no, but
No, there's no such thing really.
stumbling into this. Okay, so my first beer is an Evil Twin Brewing, more or less evil pale ale. It's hazy pale ale. There's some stuff in Japanese. There's supposed to be flavor text somewhere, right?
Maybe.
Sometimes.
Maybe not. No, I've just got a list of ingredients, no flavor text. So I don't know if this was imported or whatever, but there we are. So I will crack it open.
Nice.
And hopefully not spill anything.
Sean, we'll come to you next.
So I don't have a beer, but I have a cocktail. So I've made myself an old-fashioned, and it's my preferred old-fashioned, which is Eagle Rare with a Demerara sugar cube, a dash of Angostura bitters, and a couple of dashes of walnut bitters. Nice, and then orange peel, lemon peel, and a maraschino cherry.
Nice. Keeping it classic for the
I was
evening.
gonna say that is my favorite cocktail is an old fashioned. I'm much more of a neat whiskey guy, but if I'm gonna go for a cocktail, it tends to be.
It's my gaming choice for cocktail because it's perfect for just sipping in between matches in like Destiny because it evolves over the whole night or an hour or so as it just slowly dilutes and just
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my close second I think is a Negroni for similar reasons.
Aadil, what are you drinking then?
So I decided this week to go into the vault. And by that I mean I had a couple beers that I've been meaning to drink. One is something I've had many times before, but it was in the bottle shop at a reasonable price, and that's of course the Trappist
Nice.
Rochefort 8. It's one of my favorite beers, if not my favorite beer. So, but I think it'll pair well with the other one. Is why I went for that versus something else. But it is Trappist beer. It is a lovely 9.2%. If you've never had it, get it, try it. I think so. They have the 6, 8, and 10 reasonably readily available, and the 10 is a triple and much stronger, or is it a quadruple?
No, I think it's a triple.
No, it's a triple. Yeah. But I prefer, even though why these Trappist beers are quite good is because they're these like quite boozy, malty, wonderful beers. I actually think that the balance of the 8 is the perfection. But yes, so I'll crack this.
Nice.
And, we'll go to you, Ben. Oh, that nose. Fuck, I love this beer. Sorry.
It's such a good beer. I went on a little adventure a couple of days ago, and I was going to crack some very different beers, but I ended up down in Devon for a couple of days and just happened across I don't know what you call it, like a farm sort of shop where they were selling loads and loads of sort of local produce, and they had a bunch of craft beer. So the first one I'm going to drink is from Utopian. It's their Vienna Keller Lager. It's 4.8%. Utopian are from, I would imagine it's Devon. It is Devon, from Bow. There we go. On EX postcode, Exeter-ish sort of way, I guess. They do have flavour text. Vienna Lager was a revelation when it was first brewed in the mid-19th century, combining Bavarian brewing techniques with a paler British-style malts. A once nearly forgotten style, our Vienna Keller Lager pays homage to those early beers. We use a traditional decoction mash with British-grown Vienna and Munich malts, leading to the beer depth and complexity. A slow, cold fermentation followed by 5 weeks of lagering has resulted in a beer which is as easy drinking as it is flavourful. And then some bits that I'll decide for myself. Thank you, beer flavour text. We shall see. Dave, we'll come back to you.
Okay, so this is the bit I get to drink it, right?
Yeah,
I've been holding
drink away. Drink all of it in one go if you like.
Yeah, pound that.
No chance. These days. Okay, so it's it's a pale ale. It's a bit hoppier. Like, I think last time I was on the show, I was like, I just drink ambers because they've got no flavour, which is basically what I want. This is obviously a pale ale with a lot more going on. It's not as citrusy as many pale ales, obviously. It's not screaming at me about various fruits that I wouldn't eat otherwise. But it has a nice kind of aftertaste. It leaves keeps it going after the party starts. I'm enjoying it so far. I will come back with a more in-depth analysis, I think, once I get into it.
Nice. Sean, you've kind of given us your rundown of your old-fashioned and why it's your sort of preferred drink when you're gaming. Is it something you kind of lean to every time you're sort of playing Destiny? Is Destiny kind of a nice evening game for you when you could spend a couple of hours, have a couple of drinks with?
Yeah, it is, Negroni would be another choice. So something on ice that just kind of evolves as you drink it. Because what's so great about these drinks is, when you first drink them, they're really kind of hot and spicy. You get that kind of alcohol kick. Oh, it's just so good. It's just so good. It's like sweet and bitter and spicy all at once, and I know this is a rubbish flavor description, but it's just good. You can
never have it on again.
Having the the orange and the lemon peel is just on your nose, and you just get that kind of freshness from that. It's just the spiciness from the bourbon, the Angostura bitters kind of just nicely warming it up kind of in the background. And then the thing I really like about walnut bitters is it reminds me of home, because we had a walnut tree, and so it's
nice.
At the end you kind of get that walnut kind of note, and it just reminds me of walking out in the in my garden, like where the walnut tree was, where all the walnuts are kind of lying around on the floor, and yeah, just super nice, just like happy, warm, just niceness.
Good, good. Enjoy it, sir. Aadil, we'll come to you again.
So, I mean, as I exhaled, having cracked the beer, the nose is great on this. It's not too boozy. It's got that lovely malty sweetness that you get on these Belgian ales. No, you can see this thick, rich, dark brown, and with quite a thick head. Like you'll notice as I rotate it. For those of you on the video players, it's just I had a poor pour, I'll be honest, and the head kind of was most of the glass, but it's slowly faded. But you still have this like full finger just lingering, which helps just promote that nose. God, it's a good beer. What's great about this beer? I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's just got all the hallmarks of a Belgian ale. It's got that sweetness and those light roasted malty flavor lingering in the background, but you've got this boozy sweetness sitting on top of it that just makes the two really and the two are really well blended together. It's just a really solid beer that, despite sort of feeling boisterous and full, it doesn't come off as, oh, this is going to knock me on my ass. Like, it feels kind of like a strong beer, but doesn't taste like one, if that makes sense. Like, it's got all these strong notes, but it doesn't feel like, oh, this is real boozy, because everything is well melded. So it just feels like, oh, this is really strong sort of taste-wise. Though part of the reason of that is that it got this 8.2%. Again, I think what works really well with this is that, and like harkening back to what I was saying earlier about the 10 is boozier, and that overpowers. There's sort of, it off balances that malty, slightly roasted back end, and this one just does. They're both just sort of there. They're twinned together. They both sort of fade at the same point. It's like it's this lovely taste curve of both the booziness and the maltiness and the sweetness. That's right, both of those three things going together in such a really great way. It's, even though it's a darker, heavy beer, it's a thing I would gladly have in a park because I love the taste so much, even at the height of summer. Like, it's great beer. Beer.
Yeah, it's one of those beers, and not when you kind of go into a bottle shop, it's probably there somewhere. Almost every bottle shop will stock this beer, but it's probably off with the Belgian beers or off with the bottled beers. You know, a lot of bottle shops now pushing their fridges and cans kind of more towards the front of shop. I remember there was a bottle shop that opened in Fish Ponds for about 6 months, 9 months, something like that, who specialised in German and Belgian beers, and the Rochefort 8 was just in my bag every time I went in.
Because they had it for a good price.
Yeah, they really did. It is just such good. I agree with you that the 8 is the best one. Yeah. Coming back to this Utopian then, it's very dark, it's very copper in colour, a little translucent, almost no head to it at all, but it's got a lovely malty nose, very bready with a little hint of sweetness, and you get a lot of that in the flavour as well. So kind of that bready malty sweetness just runs on for a while. There's not a huge amount of other things going on. You're kind of presented with this flavour which just lasts and sits for a while. A little bit of bitterness creeps in sort of towards the back end, but it's just a nice combination of slightly bready, fuller, rich malts with a lovely sweet hint to it. It'd be interesting to know what hops have gone into this, because they're definitely taken a back seat and allowing all of those sort of malts to kick forward. And even though it's a lager, for anyone that kind of doesn't drink around kind of craft lagers and stuff, it doesn't sort of present itself as a standard lager that you buy in the pub would. It's got a richness to it. It doesn't have that kind of dank, weedy sort of smell. It's not crisp. It is carbonated, but it's not crisp, and it's not sort of that super refreshing crisp taste you get from a lager. It's much more delicate than that, so it's a little bit of carbonation, but that just lifts all of those flavours, you know, that bready maltiness, that sweetness. It kind of is just lifted by that carbonation and just lasts for a long time, leaving a slight bitterness towards the end. So really, really nice and very, very drinkable at like 4.5 or 4.8%. Too easy. All these beers are just too easy to drink.
It's dangerous.
It is, absolutely is. We'll enjoy these, and we'll have a chat. We'll have a chat, I think, first about making it home, shall we, Dave and Sean? The game is released, sort of. How was it?
How was it, Sean?
How was it, Dave?
How was it for you, Sean?
It was good. It's like such a, like, I knew you were going to ask that question, and I was like, let's say, it was good. Like it's such a hard, such a hard question to answer. The response was really positive. Like we've had 2 kind of reviews, I guess. So the game's in early access, so like some people have done kind of some written reviews on it, like not just Steam reviews, and some video reviews and stuff, which has been really good. Like it's been really positive, actually. Like people seem to get it, like and that, you know, I'm pretty chuffed that happened. And then the kind of how did it go in terms of like stuff, like the thing that we think about obviously is sales and things, and we got lots of wish lists, which was our aim, and we got a decent number of sales too.
Nice.
So like I feel like it went better than our last game in terms of a launch, and this is early access, which Steam doesn't actually give you much in way of visibility when you're in early access.
Right.
So early access games have to do really well to even appear anywhere on the store, and we got like, I think we did well. That's kind of the like. It's like I think we're a week out, 2 weeks out from launch, so we're both kind of still a bit tired and like post launch, but it was good. It's always intense launching a game, and like, but like I really enjoy it when people get it in their hands and play it, and that people respond to it in a good way. I think is really, yeah. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah. I mean, I would echo all of that. I think the thing that's always for us, obviously, there's 2 big things: is how are people responding? How do we get a sense of people who are getting to grips with it and are willing to give us their feedback, whether it's on, you know, a YouTube Let's Play, whether they're streaming, or whether it's our Discord community. You know, what are people saying, and taking the time to say it. Like, I think obviously, you know, there are more people, you know, we're always talking about conversion rates and getting, you know, numbers to numbers to numbers, and, you know, the number of people who are willing to take their time to not just play the game, but also to tell us what they think, you know, provide feedback, but also record videos. You know, I continue to be in awe of that. You know, like in my other walks of life, it's hard enough getting people to give like Amazon reviews or star ratings on something. So when someone takes the time to record a video, even if it's something they're doing all the time because, you know, they're YouTubers or whatever, about our game, like that still like floors me every time that's what someone's willing to do. So we've had some great stuff. We've had people doing series as well for making it home, which which has been great. Like I know we did have that with Intelligent Design, but Cycle 28 wasn't necessarily quite the same kind of series encouraging game, because you can just like pop in and pop out. Whereas, you know, there's something a bit more about building something through with making it home. So like some series have come out, so that's really exciting to see. Not just a kind of, you know, a quick, you know, 10-minute review, you know, intro conclusion kind of format, but also just someone taking that time with the game and showing people like how deep you can go with it. And I think that's been, you know, hugely gratifying as well.
For anyone who didn't catch our last episode and hasn't heard you guys talk about the game before, can you give us a little synopsis on what you're actually doing, and then maybe we can get into some chat about that, our experiences with it.
So Making It Home is a vehicle building game where you're a ladybug married to a chain-smoking crab. And so, which is kind of like that's the way I've kind of started explaining it to people now, because it captures both sides of the game, which I think one thing that's been quite gratifying watching the reviews and stuff is that like people will say like, hey, our game's weird all the time, and like I feel this is the first time we've earned that. And people really feel like this is weird, and I think you know, shout out to Dave and writing and everything, and like has done a really good job of the story, and it's just bizarre. And like, I didn't realize how bizarre it was until someone was streaming the game and was like, "Yeah, you're a ladybug, but you got to eat these carrots." And then at some point we had a conversation where you were getting attacked by carrots, and that made sense to us. And like, and it wasn't until like, oh yeah, no, that is kind of weird.
And the carrot's like 4 times the size of you, right? Like the carrot, you know, is
and you can
enormous.
eat 7 of them at once.
Yeah, that's also very true.
So it's a vehicle building game at its core. It's about building a vehicle, designing a vehicle, optimizing this vehicle, and traveling across America. And like, it's about discovery and experimentation, which I think a lot of our games have always been about. Like, in the core is that kind of discovery and experimentation. That's in a nutshell. If you like that kind of optimization, playing around, finding stuff, then yeah.
And
I thinking, Dave. Sorry.
No, I mean, all I'd add to that is that expect some degree of platforming, because that's something that like a lot of people have, you know, because when you say vehicle building, you say systems management, like you could be thinking of something a bit more like the Factorio or whatever. Or even like what you always say, Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, right, is like a really good touchstone for us for this particular game, which doesn't involve platforming at all. We do on a 2D platformer. So that's something that I think sometimes catches people a bit by surprise about the game. And maybe we'll get into that in a sec. But yeah, there is like, if you like bouncing around this kind of Rube Goldberg machine that we make, you know, then you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, maybe just for those again who aren't quite familiar. I mean, there's like sort of conversational stops. So you basically start in LA and you're heading to Vegas, yeah?
Yes.
And at each stop you can pick up, there's sort of branching paths, you can go one of various routes below, but there's like at each stop there's some dialogue tree options for plot reasons, but the fundamental sort of loop of the game is before you set up on the next leg, you have enough money and you have like a planning blueprint view of your vehicle, and there's like the one car you need, which is your sort of office, and then you can add sort of cars to the, or platforms essentially to the right of it, and you stack those up, and then you can add up to 8 things, boxes on top of those sort of platforms when you start out with like a sales. So you're like, oh, I'll just make 5 sails all the way up, and then that will, you know, the wind will propel me, and then as you go along you unlock different contraptions that you can put on these stacks, and so that's the vehicle building loop, and the discovery is how do I best interact between these things. And what I found really gratifying is, like, for example, if you have 17 sails, every so often a sail will just unfurl and you'll have to jump around. And so part of your planning has to be, how do I get to all the bits quick enough so that I can refurl? Is that a word? It is now. Or is it just furl? Is it if you unfurl a sail, well, I guess, yeah, then it becomes furled. Anyway, you make the sail
pull it down.
Wind again. And you have to be able to get to all the spots in a reasonable amount of time. And then there's things like the turbine, which is like a propeller that, however many generators are attached, will sort of, as it spins, generate electricity. But you also have to, like, basically you're having loops of maintenance and all your bits, I guess is what I was trying to explain.
So I was playing a lot of Sea of Thieves, when we were kind of designing the game, and there's a lot of Sea of Thieves in the game, like the idea of you're managing. Like I didn't know, like I couldn't think of, well, we couldn't figure out what this genre is, but it's like the genre of game where you're a thing in a vehicle managing that vehicle. So like Fire and Sails, like Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time, like Sea of Thieves, like it's that feeling of like I'm actually in this thing that's moving, which is weirdly odd. Like not that many games have that feeling.
It's like journeying in cog management, where you're a cog in the contraption, and you might have to switch between which cog you have to influence. But the movement is like, it's not just I'm now jumping between things. It's I'm jumping between things to make sure we get from point A to point B. So I'm going to call it Journey Cog Management, or JC.
Nice. Yeah. We'll have that. Thanks very much.
I think that's been definitely part of its charm, and going back and redoing levels to try and get more stars, which you get for either hitting a certain speed or how quickly you get through the level, and various bonus objectives in different stages. But I've enjoyed kind of trying to get that optimization on sort of the vehicle, and knowing that kind of this is my route kind of through it, that I can hit a couple of cells, I can clean a solar panel, I can then jump up and hit a bellows in a second, then hit another couple of cells, then go up and hit a propeller and bounce myself across, or use a cannon or use a catapult. There's so many different contraptions sort of within this, which only then expanded within Act 2 as well, which is available as part of the early access. And it didn't ever get to a point, which I was quite glad about, where I felt what's the word I'm looking for, where it got a bit too much. It never felt that there were too many things to try and do. I always got to a point where I'm like, right, these are the things I like to use. The same with something like when you did Cycle 28, where you can have a couple of combinations of weapons, and people will tend to go to the things that they like to use, rather than maybe just going, right, this is just the most powerful option. And I think you'll definitely get a lot of that within this, that it will tailor very much to kind of how people want to play. And going back to a bit of that platforming element as well, kind of that would play into it as well, how you stack up through kind of the vehicle and move across it to be able to get to different heights on some very unforgiving tree-based levels as well, which people can discover when they play. But it definitely makes you think about, I mean, you can't ignore that platforming element. You have to take that into consideration as well as you're building things, and whether you put in a floor where there doesn't kind of need to be one on one of the items, because you just need that extra step to kind of get somewhere or something. It's definitely been kind of fun to just mess around with it and go, right, I hit 15 miles an hour as my average speed. I need to just, it needs to be more. It's only 2 stars. How do I get 3 stars? What speed do I need to get to? Let's just throw a bunch of sails on, or let's now add this in, let's swap this out, let's do this. I think you can spend a lot of time in that.
Yeah, and I think what I like is the balance between, like, full confession, I only got to play a couple of runs, but what I liked was the balance between, like, what I want to experiment more with is the balance between the platforming and the design. So obviously, like, things like the bellows, it's like smack it and then wait for it to come back. But things like the turbine and the propeller, like when I was eating carrots with the attack charge, I realized, oh, that just goes straight through at a speed. And I was consistently having a problem because my platforming skills are subpar these days, of just like trying to get the propeller or the turbine go. Well, first it was just the turbine going quick enough, and then like when I'm trying to like just accelerate it more, hitting the middle and then just sort of stopping it. And also because if you hold jump or whatever, you'll cling to a surface, which is a really good quality of life thing when you're trying to get things off of the, like jumping off to get a coin and then zooming back and being able to know that I'll just stick to a thing, great. But with the turbine, it's like, well, now I've just stopped it, and I'm stuck to it. And if I let go, it's now like straight up and down, and now there's no way for me to easily dodge. And what have I done to myself? But discovering that, like, once I had to start using the eat the carrots attack to eat the carrots, it was like, oh, I can kind of spin the turbine that way. And actually, if I put a turbine and a propeller next to each other, because the propeller just is free speed if you go through it. If I'm just trying to spin the turbine, I can just sort of jump out the propeller, hit the attack mode, and spin both, and end after them. And that's just like that's really easy to do on a loop of like checking on sales, etc. It's like the propeller is going to spin for a bit and give me free energy, but I'm getting that turbine, and I'm getting it sort of at a consistent height because I can choose when to like. That much control I have on platforming. So like I'm not going to hit now charge because it's basically like a flying leap vertically. Or yeah. Sorry, at a vertical level you go horizontally for a stretch of time.
Yeah.
You can then
it's one of those things we kind of added as an attack, and then it was like, oh, there's like hundreds of other uses for this.
Yeah.
And then it just blends into it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like cool. So now I know I won't as long as I see I'm at height, you know, right at the top of the propeller, I can just hit that button and know I won't mess it up because of the parabola of my jump. Because I'll just go right through the spinner at the right height. And that makes it so much easier for me to do. And then I realized I could stack them with a couple of things. And I was like, cool, I feel like I'm getting a feel for this game. But also why it's not just get the perfect design. Because you have to balance your platforming and that, but also your skills at platforming and that. So it's like, no one person's perfect machine will be the same because it sort of leans on what do you want to do, what can you do, and then the general like min-maxing of how do what devices are best to do these things. But because of the other two, I don't think there's like going to be an optimal build out there in any sort of fashion because some people just platform differently or have different skill sets, and that matters way more than, oh, actually, if you have 17 million sales, it turns out you just win the game, or like those things that people often try and look to exploit.
Yeah, and I think that was 100% at our like at the front of our minds where we were thinking about once we realized like platforming was going to be part of the game, like we just wanted to lean into that as much as possible, not just with the designing. So like one of the big things, I think we talked about it last time we were on, was opening up that ability to put the walls and ceilings wherever you wanted on the vehicle. Like, so you get to decide what the shape of your platforming is going to be like. Like if you love wall jumping, you know, go nuts. You can kind of do all your columns up and never even have any horizontal surfaces in, you know, your vehicle apart from the very bottom floor. And what we quickly realized was that puts, you know, the skill ceiling very, very high, like, because, you know, like you, Aadil, I am terrible at platforming. Anybody watch me play my own game sees how bad I am at platforming. But it just means that even though I know good designs and I know good synergies, I will miss coins. I won't be great with carrots. I will, like, our other obstacles will cause me problems. I'll miss balloons on the top of bridges, or yada yada, because I'm just not great at platforming. So, you know, and that I think, but once you add in things like, and this is Sean's department more than mine, but the attacks and the timing of that and how it interrupts the jump, you can actually even someone like me can start to see, you know, there are ways of upskilling for this.
So the attack, have any of you played Celeste?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the attack is the dash from Celeste.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's where that came from. Like Celeste, actually, like I played a hell of a lot of Celeste. So like I think I said for Psycho 28, I was like, I played like loads of Luftbrowsers, and then I was like, why does this work? Like, what is it about this? What's and I'm there with a notepad trying to figure out what the kind of like, why does this feel like this? And so I did the same with Celeste, and which, you know, like I stole a bunch of stuff. But yeah, so that is totally from that. The thing that, like you were saying, Dave, about the skill ceiling. So one of the panels is a solar panel, and you have to wash it, right? So you had to, because when we first kind of were coming up with like these, I think solar panels and sails were the two things that we kind of had to start with. We were like this idea of like, okay, these are the two main things we're going to design. we need them to feel different. And so like sails, you just click a button and you unfurl your sails, furl your sails. And then there's the cleaning.
Everyone.
So originally, like solar panels, you just click on them and you get a clean solar panel, and over time they get dirty. But then we're like, well, that's the same interaction. That's the same thing you're doing, so they don't feel different. So what you do is you hold down the action button, and you kind of like walk from side to side as you're scrubbing the solar panel. So in our mind, you always need a floor on your solar panel, right? Because you need the floor to walk along and clean. One of the people in our Discord managed to clean a solar panel with no floor.
It was like a mini shower.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Oh man, I want to know how that works now.
Yeah.
So that bum wiggle on that ladybug is probably my crowning achievement. You know, writing schmiting. I animated that bum wiggle on the ladybug, and that's the bit of the game I'm happiest about.
Amazing.
So everyone builds solar panels just to clean them and see that wiggle.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
I was going to say that I can't remember.
So we'll lean into the writing a little bit then.
Oh no.
I suppose I didn't have a kind of any notion about kind of actually what the story was, even playing through the beta and stuff, and it kind of, you know, very well explains itself to you and kind of lets you uncover this story through the interactions in between the stops between the characters. But there's definitely a moment where I'm like, not as all as it seems. This is actually very, very
kind of 28
different. And I just wonder, like, obviously, yes, we've spoke previously kind of about like the ARG and stuff of previous games and all those sorts of things. But what made you kind of take this in a slightly not a different direction, but to have this kind of undercurrent of this story kind of masked by something else, I suppose?
I mean, I will answer, but really it's actually kind of Sean as much as anything leading on this as me, because this is just what Pillbug games do. They, they appear... yeah, Aadil had it right away. That they appear to be one thing on the surface, and the deeper you go, we want you to find something beyond that, beyond the surface too. And in, like you say, in Cycle 28, there was the ARG element. I mean, that's kind of true of intelligent design as well. But in fairness, I think, Sean, it's probably even deeper. Like, it's even more buried.
Probably. Like, yeah. I would say it's really buried inside. Like, I'm so like one of my like biggest achievements as kind of a game designer, I think, is a negative review we had for intelligent design, where it's the one person who actually gets it, and he left a negative review, and it was like, yeah, you get it, you actually, like, finally someone gets what I was trying to say with this game, and yeah, I'm happy.
He didn't like it.
He didn't like the game, but he was like, but there's this thing, and I found these things, and it seems like this is going on. Is that what's going on? I'm like, yes, that is what's going on. And then I was like, yeah, that probably would annoy you. that probably is an annoying thing to find out. Fair enough.
One thing we're trying to work on as game developers is telling players when they have got it. Like,
yeah,
right.
Like, you got it. Like, good job.
Right. So, like, rewarding the digging rather than hoping that they like it and haven't holding a shovel for long enough.
Yeah, definitely. Or just
that
telling
seems
them
like a really tough balance.
Telling them they've hit the bottom and they can stop digging, I think, is another.
Yeah, like I mean, because Cycle 28 was just nuts. Like, it was like people were looking into every video we did of like, he looked down at the 43 seconds into this video, he looked at the floor. That means something,
that's
right?
Amazing.
I mean, in fairness,
or there was like bugs. They found like bugs, and they were like, that means something. Look, there's a typo in this particular sentence. That must be,
no.
That must be
Actually,
something.
so I haven't kept track. What is the status of Cycle 28 and its unfound, or is everything discovered now?
well, we run a golden ticket thing for every Pillbug game ever to the person who solve the ARG of Cycle 28. And that was one, what is it, like 4-5 months into launch?
I think it might be
I didn't realize it's that quick. I must have just missed that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, you're right. It was 6 months. 6 months after, to the point where we were starting to worry that no one was going to get it because obviously people's interests go elsewhere and yada yada yada. So no, someone did. A guy in Australia.
Nice.
He kind of gave us the explanation. Emailed us how he did it, and he helped some of the Discord stuff. I was very impressed with how he handled that because he was helpful without being like, "This is what you've got to do."
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like exactly what you want. Is someone who's like, hey, I get that the whole reason why people are doing this is because there isn't a walkthrough, but some people need hints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like so much of the internet is about, no, just do this. It's like, well, yeah, everyone will do this, but they don't get the magic. Like, the magic is the struggle. God, I sound like, look, with philosophy PhD, big hair, big beard, the struggle is the journey. The end point isn't. Call me a dill pack. No. Yeah, but that's really good to hear. I must have just missed that on my window of tracking Cycle 28 because I didn't realize it was solved.
Yes, and as Sean reminded me the other day, when I think the fellow in Australia did solve it, we then sent T-shirts to not just him but also the 4 other most helpful people on our Discord.
Yeah, we did. We kind of kept a track of who was really, because it was a group effort. Like, I think what we we did the golden ticket thing, and then we deliberately designed it so that you kind of had to work with people internationally.
Oh,
wasn't it? Like you had to, yeah. So like there was a requirement for you to talk to people in other countries, and so like. Then we're like, hang on, but we're only rewarding one person, and clearly they're doing this together. And we designed it so that people were doing it together. So we felt a bit like, what's going to happen when they all decide if they discover it together, who's going to be the person to email us? Like,
did we send Ben
a
T-shirt? Like, I feel bad, like, because Ben was quite helpful, and we didn't. Maybe we'll send you a T-shirt, Ben. I feel like we should have. Because you were.
I think we should have a thing of everyone that had a notepad next to them when they were playing Cycle 8 to get a T-shirt.
Didn't Ben join a library just to check the?
I did.
Wait, what?
Yes. Yeah. So I can't remember. What was this? Like 2 years ago now, roughly. There was some theories running around about. Some of the graphics in the game representing novels, and then everyone was looking into novelists' work, and we were trying to find similar titles and similar front covers for things, and then there was children's books that looked like it, but it wasn't those, and then there's sci-fi novels, and then there was a load of stuff about the poem that's in it as well, and trying to work out different pages of compendiums of their work, and fucking ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous thing to put your time into.
I mean, that sounds great.
I think
it's
a lot of fun.
It's good to have that extra element to it, that additional kind of puzzle to it, especially I suppose, and that's the kind of the difference maybe, or at least from my kind of reading of going from Cycle 28 to making it home, and that Cycle 28 kind of presented a little bit of story in snapshots, and you kind of got little bits to go on. Whereas making it home, you're having conversations, you are actively participating in uncovering the story rather than kind of being given to you, and being able to kind of change up your conversation. So I know when I was doing a run, I would say, right, I've spoken to this person, I think I picked this time, so let's see what they tell me, or how this conversation goes if I pick a different answer. What happens if I just don't talk to them? How does that actually affect my run? Does talking to them take up time? Does that affect how long things are going on? There's loads of stuff that kind of build into the game more so than it kind of did with Cycle 28 to try and get you through sort of a run. And I don't know how far through on your runs you got, Aadil, but I think I got through to the end. Got to the last level. I'm like, oh, Act 2 only opens after I've got so many stars. How am I going to do this? And then realizing that actually all of the stages cumulatively get me to that point. And then just go, right, I'll just do everything now. I'll just do every single stage. Right, I've had this conversation. I don't need to have this one. I don't need to do this. And just, I'm kind of almost then speed running through various sections of it. But then thinking, oh no, what if the conversation there had a slightly different answer and I've missed something and now I have to go back and do more?
I basically had that, but in a paralytic mode. But that was, I mean, I have my own hangups. That was the tail end of my... It was like right in the last year of my PhD, and I didn't need more anxiety over missed things, and so that's actually one of the reasons why I didn't play that game sort of after the first burst. Was it was kind of like, I really want to do this well. Oh god, it seems like there's so many things I need to balance, and in that frame of mind, not great. But I think that's okay. Like I don't think one needs to change the design of a game for PhD anxiety on things. But yeah, so I definitely, like, I got to that point that you mentioned where it's like, okay, I got through the loops, I got through Act 1. I see where this is going, but also I just, personal reasons, will find something else to do. And that was avoiding working on my PhD for other reasons than video games, which ultimately, now that I look back on it, I should have just played games.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna rinse my glass. How is everyone for drinks, actually?
I can probably go for another one, I think.
Yeah,
Cool. Why don't we do that and just
Yeah.
don't start with me, so I can rinse the one glass I brought up because I don't know, environment / I'm just spoiled by sync and background.
You do that.
I'm gonna need to go construct a drink if that's
yeah,
rude.
of course. Go, Sean. We'll come to you, Dave. We'll come to you, Dave,
Yes.
whilst you're...
So I did say I was going to give a little bit more analysis. I mean, it's kind of eased a little bit, but certainly when I started drinking it, again, because I'm not much of a pale ale or an IPA or an EPA drinker, it was quite sharp. It was perhaps a little more in my face than I necessarily wanted it to be to begin with. But it's eased a little bit, obviously, as my palate's got a little bit more used to it. I am very much looking forward to getting to the next beer, though, because I've drunk, I've had it before. This is the first time I've had that Evil Twin. Yeah, that's the first time I had that. So, it's nice, as I said, not too citrusy, because again, that would probably be too much for me. But even so, it was a bit sharp, but eased into it. So I will talk about my second beer, right? That's this stage. Yep, cool. Okay. So it is a Florida Vice. Is that how you say that? Like Vice?
Yes.
Vice,
Yeah.
yeah.
Excellent. Good start.
Actually, it's we is.
And this is a hazy raspberry sour. It's 4.5% from Thornbrige.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got any flavor text? We're going to flavor text. No. So fail on flavor text again. Oh no! Wait! Here it is.
Nope.
Florida Vice is our hazy and refreshing fruit sour that is bracingly tart. It pours with a pinkish hue and is absolutely brimming with the flavor of fresh raspberries. So, I should finish this one first.
I don't think I've actually had that, even though it's been around for a little while.
Yeah.
When you say you said you had it before, Dave. What has made you go back to it?
That's a good question. I don't have a local, a really local bottle shop in the part of Cardiff I live in.
Mm-hmm.
So I am at the moment, obviously, given what we're going through, a little locked into my what my Tesco has. So, but inspired by you guys, I've upped my game with what I will take from that selection. I've had a stout. I never had a stout before in my life.
Oh,
Really?
even
No, I still haven't had a Guinness. It all just looks scary.
What stout did you pick? Do you remember?
It's downstairs. It's
fine if you don't. Like no pressure. I was just curious if you recalled.
It's a can because I do that 4 for £6 whatever in Tesco. So, and it's a very black can. It's not the sorcery one.
Is it the Magic Rock one?
It could be.
the Dark
Arts.
Dark Arts. It is. Yes, it is the Dark Arts. Yes, there we go.
We are experts.
You guys do know your stuff.
We know high street beers.
That's it. To be honest, Lucy, I was a little concerned that bringing Tesco related stuff would not go down well, but I didn't get pilloried for when I brought a couple of ambers. So yeah,
Needs must,
exactly. But there is a really nice bottle shop, or slightly on the other side of the city centre from us. That I'm really looking forward to getting into them once lockdown is eased a little bit, because in Wales it's still a little bit tight.
Yeah.
On unnecessary journeys. So, although this does feel like a necessary journey.
It absolutely is. The bottle shop is definitely a necessary journey.
And I will definitely be taking the Trappist. Is it Trappist? Trappist?
Trappist.
Trappist.
Yeah.
On beer in. And taking that recommendation to when I do finally get to that bottle shop, because, as you said, I'm sure they have it.
Yeah.
So that's my second bit, and it's pouring. I'll pass over to someone else.
Aadil, what have you got next?
Yeah. So this is the beer that I've been sitting on for a bit. Got it earlier in lockdown. It's the Windswept Brewing Wolf of Glen Morey. It is a dark Scottish ale aged in Glen Morey whiskey cask. It matured in a freshly emptied bourbon cask used by Glen Morey to create its Elgin classic whiskey. The Wolf has matured with whiskey notes, enriching the dark chocolate and licorice flavors, giving it a long, warm finish. And it is a spry 9.2%.
Nice.
And it is fully Scotch. Gotta peel the top off of the thing that covers. Oh, that's really disappointing. So it has a pull tab that doesn't actually pop the thing, the wax or whatever coating that protects the it literally just for show. I still need to crack through the coating as I use the bottle opener. But it's been a while since I've had a whiskey aged beer.
Yeah, I've not had one for ages.
Yeah, I mean
I say ages, Christmas sort of time maybe.
Yeah.
Feels like a long time ago.
That's that's before times, sir.
Yes,
that
would
have been 17 years. Oh wait.
Nice. You're pouring. I'm going to open a beer as well. So again, from the same little farm shop, leaning into Somerset for my beer, I've gone with Electric Bear Brewing Company. It's Word, which is an American pale ale. It's 4.2%. They have they've got no flavour text at all. Just a nice can.
That is a pretty can.
Yes.
Oh wow. What is? Sorry, you're a little dark there. What is the? So it looks really bright, but is it just random patterns, or is?
No, it's like a tower block, a couple of buildings.
Oh yeah. Okay.
A little scene. For two reasons. It kind of reminded me of Making It Home. There's no cities in Making It Home. It's all desert, but similar-ish sort of hand-drawn artwork for it. Yeah. And also Electric Bearer from Bath, which is where Dave and I partied for a couple of years.
We did.
I thought I'd get this one open. But yeah, an American pale ale. A little bit lighter than the last beer at 4.2%. And we'll come back to you, Dave.
Oh, yes, drinking. Although Sean's here now, so he can talk about what he's got, and then I'll be ready.
Did you stay with the old fashions?
No. Well, I've now got a flapjack old fashioned, which is like it's Jamaican rum, which is like Appleton Estate, which is really nice. And I noticed that you can get it now in like normal supermarkets, which is really cool. It's kind of funky.
Get?
Well, maybe I just never noticed it, but like I was surprised when I saw that. No.
But if you're not looking for it, it's always at the bottom in the back. It's
a staple, accessible rum in Canada, well, at least in Albertan liquor stores. Like you just have it in the corner shops as well as the boutique places. Like so,
yeah.
I mean,
like amazing. Like it's such a nice rum. Like so it's Appleton Estate rum, sweet vermouth, and maple syrup, and then like mole bitters.
Oh, I didn't know they made mole bitters.
So it's kind of like chocolatey but cinnamony, and it's like like a Starbucks cinnamon swirl. I mean, imagine that in bitters form, and that's what they are. They're amazing.
Can't decide if now I just need to find mole bitters or if I need to go to a Starbucks.
You can do both. There's no law. You can do both of those things.
I mean, there is a law, and it says limit the places you go.
Yeah, sure.
You need to run into Starbucks and say, "I need mole bitters." Demand them. And don't wear a mask.
Good. Dave, we will come back to you now then.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, they weren't wrong about the pinkish hue. That's
kind of looks like grapefruit juice from this angle.
Yes. It's. I mean, when I first had it, obviously I was totally floored because I had never had a sour before. It's turning into a Dave Has Never episode, but I have never had a sour before. So and also to be a raspberry sour, right? Like I just had never tasted anything that was competingly so sweet and so sour, except the obvious. So especially not in a beer, I guess is my point. But so like I just fell in love with it immediately. I think way back when, because it was completely different. It tastes, I guess, it was one of those first beers beyond the regular set of ales that then felt like it had that long aftertaste that I only needed to sip it. And and it could keep me going for a long time. And
my favorite feeling.
Yeah, and like I just hadn't really had that very much. Or at least been conscious of it in quite the same way. So I was so a bit like now, just sipping it whilst doing other stuff, and just realised that I was very much enjoying just the gentle sipping of it rather than necking it back or whatever. So that was really nice. In terms of describing the taste, it's hard to describe this taste because of the sweetness, because of the sour. But I suppose for me, the sour does slightly override the sweet, so I can feel my mouth kind of, trying to, do that thing. And I've never been a fan of sours as a sweet or candy option, that kind of,
right.
So
sour's not your favorite flavor type.
Not at all, no. I mean, to be honest, I don't. Sweets were never my thing anyway. I was more of a chocolate or a biscuit guy. But when it came to that, I was definitely not into the sours. So that's not something my mouth has done or experienced a lot. So it was, again, quite interesting from that perspective. The raspberry element, I mean, you guys will have had other sours, so you guys will know way more than I do. But I'm at least intrigued to try other sours. I've got a blood orange sour. In the fridge, and I wondered about drinking that alongside it tonight, but I thought, I'd bring at least a bit of a variety. So I'm really interested to see what that, brings to that sour experience. But it's very sippable, very drinkable. I won't drink it very, very quickly. I imagine probably some people would.
Yeah, so one of the things that happens with, depending on the sour, is if it leaves, like, there's a difference between the sour sort of taste and the mouthfeel, and if it dries out your mouth because it's too sour and bitter, you'll, like, feel like you have to reach for the glass just to, like, rehydrate. And it sounds like it doesn't have that note, which is really good, because then you can tackle the sourness on its own terms. You'd be like, oh, I really like this, I'll have rapid succession of sips, or, oh, I like this but don't need it too quickly, in which case I can nurse it. So it's just a thing to look out for when you try sours. It's just like, is the mouthfeel making me sort of tackle that tartness and that sourness and that bitterness on its own terms, or is it forcing me because it's sort of like, I need something to just sort of power through. So.
Yeah, and I think if I'd have felt that, I definitely would have and wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as I have or am. Because of that, yeah, I think of like I'm very kind of stubborn in a sense. I don't like being forced to do stuff by, my drinks or my, I actually kind of resent caffeine quite a bit because it has a hold on me. So yeah, like I don't like that about it. But yeah, so I'm sure I'll enjoy this.
As a slight aside, I do remember you liked a cider back in the day.
I got a lot of stick for that, yeah.
Does this, sours kind of almost, don't remind me of ciders, but they kind of almost fall towards that sort of category, fruity, carbonated kinds of beers. And just for something kind of going forward for you to kind of look at, when we're all allowed out of our houses again and able to go into places, you might kind of, if this one is a bit sort of carbonated and it's giving you that sort of like that zing kind of at the start, and you want something that lasts a little bit longer, have a look and see if you can find like a kettle sour, which is a little bit flatter, and in kind of comparison to give you something that you sort of can lean into. Kind of, if you're looking at sort of a normal sour is your slightly more fizzy, carbonated sort of cider. And if you go with a kettle sour, it's more akin to something like Old Rosie or something that's a lot flatter, that still gives you those sour, but it delivers it in a very different kind of way. And it's an interesting difference between the two. Similar style beer, but a very interesting difference.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, all recommendations greatly received, definitely.
Good. We'll come to Aadil.
It's me. I don't know if you saw, but like my pour was again not great. So very similar in the. You can just see how thick that head was on the bad pour because it's just still clinging minutes later to the top of the glass. About a half finger's head this time lingering, but like, yep, that's a barely brown, almost black beer. The nose is substantively sweeter with a hint of vanilla, which I guess makes sense if it was a bourbon cask that it claimed it was. I didn't actually say it was brewed in Lossiemouth, Scotland.
Say that one again.
Yeah.
Where?
Lossiemouth? Here, hold on. Can you... Yeah.
Not quite.
Lossiemouth. Lossiemouth. Lossiemouth, presumably,
Yeah.
but I was trying to enunciate the spelling. Yeah, super sweet though on the nose. Like compared to the similarly boozy, slightly less boozy, but similarly. Oh wait, no, this is 9.2. What was? I always forget what this one is. 9. This is 9.2. This is they're identical. They're both 9.2.
Nice.
Rating. Who knew? Oh, that's a very interesting beer. So, although it's quite darker, it's actually quite... Sorry, cameras. Evoking my mental capacity. It's quite... it's quite a bit thinner. Like the mouthfeel and the texture is much more watery. But with that comes the malts it's much more malt forward. You're getting a lot of roasted notes that linger throughout. They're not really strong, but like as the taste curve happens, that roasted taste doesn't change. So by the finish, you're like, oh yeah, they're there. And then you're like, wait, they were always there. You do taste a sweetness that feels like it's driven by the alcohol as well. But again, it does have that sort of bourbony, slightly vanilla taste to it. But because of that, this tastes like, yeah, if you told me this was 9.2%, I'd be like, cool, this is 9.2%. But it's actually, my fear is, because it's thinner, because there's a different balance in taste, I'm going to be drinking this quicker. It's not like I was mentioning earlier, it's not like it's drying my mouth out or forcing me to grab it again. It's just, I think what it is the interaction of the, so like that sort of burnt, malty, slightly toffee taste is the thing that lingers, but it's quite reserved. And then all the rest of the taste and all the interesting things that happen a little quick. Okay. So then I'm like, oh, that was really, but really interesting. So it's like, oh, I want to go through that little journey again. Let me just pick it up and take another sip. This is a very excellent beer, though. Unfortunately, I have bottle 4415 of 5600. And I bought it over a month ago, so I'm not sure if you can find it again. But if you can, it's real good. Yeah, so one of the things I was sort of hesitant on is bourbon oak casks. Because bourbon's made... Because it said bourbon... I suspect what that meant was it originally was a bourbon cask, and then was a whiskey cask, and then it was used. Because one of the things you notice in bourbon aged beers is that oaky taste really comes through. It's one of the reasons why in whiskey you never use fresh oak casks. You always use previously used casks, because that oaky taste is quite strong and in your face. So, and I mean, that's great for a bourbon, which is supposed to be more biting. But for a whiskey, it tends to overpower the nuance that's going on. And this clearly, there's a slight oakiness, but not a lot. So I think whoever wrote the flavor text wasn't. I think it's a Glen Morey barrel that originally was a bourbon barrel.
Right.
Just based on how little oakiness I'm getting off of it, there's a slight bit, but I'm getting much more of the malty notes that come from whiskey, a non-bourbon, like a single malt Scotch whiskey aged beer. Slightly sweeter. The vanilla's there, but it's reserved. Just overall, but I really like this beer. I'm sad I didn't grab two, although it wasn't inexpensive.
Could have aged one. Could have sat on your shelf for years.
Yeah, it's super interesting because so one of the things we were mentioning earlier was the mouthfeel. It does leave me a little dry after the initial sip, which is part of the reason I keep reaching for it. It's not only so. I like the idea of, hey, look, it might be just because the taste curve is sort of short in time. Like, oh, it starts, gives me a journey, ends, has a long finish, but the interesting stuff is sort of crammed in the first 10 seconds. That's fine. Then it's my choice to grab it. But now that I've reached for it a couple times, I'm noticing actually it's leaving my mouth a little dry, and that's pushing me to get more sips, and that's suboptimal from my perspective, but you know, your mileage may vary. But yeah, really excellent beer. And I was completely right. It's a really interesting follow-up to the fantastic, you know, one of my favorite beers ever. Like they work really well together on the palate. They're very different in the sense of what they're doing, but they both live in that rich, boozy, but you can't quite tell how boozy, strong dark beer. So yeah. Nice. I'm happy with both. I mean, good. We'll find out later.
Good. That brings me, I suppose, to the Electric Bear, which is an odd beer. So it's got this lovely, dank, weedy nose to it.
Oh, it's quite clear.
It's yes, it's very, very sort of clear. You can sort of just make
Okay,
out.
so it's actually just that it's quite straw colored.
Yes, it's very, very.
I thought
light.
it was like lager from the shop clear, but it's actually just that coloring, but still kind of murky.
A little bit murky.
Yeah.
So it's got that. It's got a nice sort of dank, weedy nose to it. But then when you drink it, it kind of starts off with this very, very light orange flavour. And I've had beers before where you can kind of compare them almost to like a very weak orange squash. It's got that little hint of orange to it, but it's a little bit sort of a little bit more malty maybe, so you're getting a kind of a bready, biscuity kind of background with a little bit of orange in there, which just dulls it down a little bit. But it has that dankness to it in the flavour as well, which again detracts from this fruity orange kind of note going on even more. It's almost like a very I don't know, a very old Jaffa cake that someone else has licked the chocolate off of. You've just had a joint and then you're banging back all of these Jaffa cakes. That's this beer.
Interesting.
Is that a good thing, or?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm drinking it very quickly. It's very light. It's only 4.something%, so it's really easy. No carbonation to it at all. Little bit of bitterness comes with that dankness sort of towards the end, but not much whatsoever. And it all dries out and fades really quickly. So I am reaching for it to have a little bit more of that flavour, although the orange does linger slightly. But it's making me reach for it to drink, rather than me wanting to kind of go back to it. So I am drinking it quite quickly, but only because it fades so fast.
Who's eating the chocolate off your Jaffa cakes?
I mean, I don't know. What kind of house do I live in?
I sure thought you were just gonna blame Evelyn. Like, just like
she can't eat chocolate, so it's not her.
Oh, right, I forgot. Yeah.
So I've got to blame Kim.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kim.
Could be your cat.
Could be the cat. It's probably me in the middle of the night, completely forgetting.
The problem isn't that
and then
someone else is doing it. It's that Ben's eating Jaffa cakes in 2 stages.
That makes sense.
Scraping of the chocolate and putting it aside, and then there's the next day.
To be fair, it does sound like something I would do. Let's move on. Well, actually, Sean, your flapjack, old-fashioned. You've kind of described sort of the taste of. Which would you kind of not which do you prefer? We'll come to that towards the end. But is this kind of a between the two drinks? Is it something that you would alternate between, or would you stick with one normally for an evening?
This is like I don't alternate between.
Okay.
But this is a really good, like, it's from a book called Nightcap by Cara Newman, and it's like lots and lots of like drinks that are meant to be your last drink.
Right. Okay.
And it's really more than like another, like the old fashioned I had earlier. This one is like a really lingering, like it's a long developing taste. Like it's really, it's like, so something I forgot to say is that there's a star anise garnish. So on top, so the first thing that you get when you lift the glass up is that aniseed from the star anise, and then you take a sip, and it's like the first thing that hits you is kind of the kind of thickness of the mouthfeel from the maple syrup, and kind of a sweetness, and then you get kind of like this butterscotch from the rum, which is like, which is super. It feels like it's weird because it's like a savoury sweetness. It's not like sweet. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a weird kind of sweetness. It's not like I'm eating something really sweet like a chocolate bar, but it's kind of gives you the sense of sweetness, and then you kind of start getting what I think is wormwood from the sweet vermouth. Which plays really well with the aniseed, because that's then taking you to I've forgotten the spirit name that's like aniseed and wormwood, absinthe.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of got that kind of feeling, and then the mole bit has come at the end, and it's like that cinnamon, like you know when you get like a truffle that you put in your mouth, and you that initial kind of cocoa powder that touches your tongue, and it's like that drying kind of, it's got kind of that kind of chocolate, and then to cinnamon. and then
Wow.
it's quite drying on the mouth towards the end, and it's just it's so good. Like it's compared to like the old fashioned that is just like I take a drink and it's that really nice kind of bourbon sweetness. It's all there very quickly, and this is like slowly winding down, kind of warm.
So
Like
I mean, that sounds like quite the pace journey, and I guess my only thing is, it sounds like so many interesting things. Would you prefer to have that at the beginning of the night or the end of the night, just on your personal preference?
I guess I think I prefer to have this when I'm not playing a game.
Yeah, so you
Because
can
I
just
want to
like,
just be thinking about this. Like I want to sit and just. So I will often have. So if me and Dave stream every Tuesday, and after I stream, if it's not too late, I'll make myself one of these and kind of chill out.
Yeah,
that's my Tuesday evening jam.
Nice. Is it kind of
sounds
one that you might lean to whilst Dave's playing something, and you can just sort of hover
Yeah,
in the
just
background?
sip it, you laugh at his platforming. I mean, I might have to bother you for the exact recipe, and we might actually have to put it up on the Twitter, because that sounds luxurious.
Yeah.
But also mole bitters. I don't know how easy those are to track down.
Oh, easy. Yeah, I can chuck you a link to where you can
Gotcha.
get those.
Excellent.
An affiliate link, right, Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, good shout. Offer code Pillbug.
Nice. Let's get back into games, and we'll. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Lucy, because you've been sat very quietly and very patiently.
I've been enjoying the conversation.
Good.
Can I say something about making it home that I didn't get a chance to?
Yeah, of course, because I was gonna lean away from that very slightly.
I know, that's why I figured I would
Yeah.
like jump in and say one last. This is a quality of life thing from my user experience, which is the literal only thing that I was like, on was so when you're in the dialogue boxes, the story between at the city stops between, running the vehicle, etc. You like, and I actually think this might be a function of I'm playing on a very big screen, but the way the dialogue works is someone says blah, the person you're talking to, if you choose to talk to them, and then you pick one of up to 4 options, and you click on it, and there's a pause, and then it like makes your dude pick the thing, which I've just read because I chose the thing, and I found that I think normally like that doesn't bother me too much in games, but I think it's because the pacing of the levels is such that I'm kind of always moving around and rushing, and then having to read what I know why it's going to say because I chose to say it, just instead of here, it slowly types it out here, was like within like first time I was like, oh, that's weird. Within 2 runs, I was still like, I wish I could just say the thing and then hear what they said. And I think like obviously it's early access and like maybe just speed up the typing or whatever, but like I thought it was a thing that's worth floating because it's those little things that you kind of have to track from, just like, for all I know, everyone else is like, I like that, right? But I just thought like it's one of those balancing things that is worth bringing up.
Yeah, definitely. And you're not alone. I don't know if that's helpful or whatever to hear, but that is something that people have fed back to us, and I think there's. So I agree. Like I understand that seeing the same thing twice, most of the time, is not a good thing. Like it's not necessarily something you want, especially in a dialogue tree and so on and so forth. Why we went with that to begin with, and again, as you say, it's early access, so this very, very will likely change, is that we were slightly worried that because of the complexity of some of the things that were going on, the kind of hiding of things, that people might actually forget what they've chosen. Like, and then when the reply comes up from the NPC or the person you're talking to, you might forget what had triggered that in their conversation, because you clicked it and then you're reading along.
You've just made me realize that there's probably a really easy solution, which is we don't animate that text.
Yeah, that's probably the best.
That just appears fully.
Yeah, I I was also thinking you just don't fade the choice away.
Yeah,
that could also be another thing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I clicked on it, and I'm like, I clicked on that. That's where I expect. I read the thing, I picked the thing. But yeah, you're right. Like, I think either or. I think it's mostly what, like I said, when I thought about why it irked me, it was because so much of the game was like encouraging me to optimize timing, and then I picked the thing. Now I'm waiting, and I can't fix that. And I think that's why in other games it's okay, but in this game it felt jarring. But yeah, so I mean, I'm glad I'm not just the neurotic guy in the corner that other people said. But also, I thought it would be useful to talk about because it's like I think you can iterate on.
Definitely, yeah, and I think as well as like another like it actually it's a small thing, but it flags up loads of really interesting things about like I guess player interaction, human interaction with dialogue, with representations of dialogue, and like that idea of not flashing out the box at the bottom and leaving that there so that you can see. I think if we went down that route, which we may well do, we'd also probably have to put the player speaking avatar like on top of it or something. Like it would have to appear because you'd be like, I click that button, and people need to be, again, it's a bit like what we were saying with Cycle 28. You need that reinforcement of, oh, I've just said that. Like it's not just I picked it, but I've just said it as well. And it's a tiny thing, but it's all adds up to that player experience of feeling like you're in a conversation. But I think that's something we will definitely look at.
Very cool.
Nice.
Sorry, there's just the one thing that I thought was interesting.
No, that's really, really useful, definitely.
And it's the joy of kind of being in early access, isn't it? That people understand that it is an evolving experience, that things will change, that feedback is wanted as well. It's not just that you're kind of doing stuff as and when you feel like it. It's that you want to hear back from everybody on their experiences and to kind of to hone your craft in a way and kind of make a better experience. And I say that's good in early access, but we get lots of games these days where that's just people just release a game and then they just change it completely. Just the way games are these days. So to move away slightly from making home, Dave and Sean, have you just been consumed by this game since its release, or have you had a chance to kind of delve into other experiences? Is there anything that you've kind of experienced anew or seen anew that's made you kind of reconsider a couple of points that you're sort of putting into this? Obviously, being in early access and you can do these kinds of things and change stuff up. Is there anything that you've kind of experienced in the last couple of weeks which has made you kind of reevaluate stuff a little bit?
It's a good question.
Yes but no, and no but yes. I have, like, alongside developing, making it home, getting it ready, I have to mention this. I've been playing The Last of Us for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And I played through 1, then the DLC, and then Last of Us 2, all in one kind of like I'd never played. Well, I played it before. Like I started playing Last of Us 1 like when Cycle 28 launched, and I think I was just in a bad mental place, and that game is quite challenging, and I just couldn't deal with it, so I stopped. And then I went back recently, and I completed it 2 nights ago. I worked really hard to complete it for this podcast, because I know you guys are like fans. Wow, that's a game, right?
Yeah.
And like, so it's not. It's such a. So I've been obsessed. Like I've been like thinking about that game quite a lot. And the kind of thing that jumps out at me is the violence in that game, and how violent that game is, and in a way that it made me feel bad about what I was doing in a very effective way. And how much can I talk? How much can I talk about? I don't want to spoil anything for people, but sorry.
One? Part 2 or part 1?
Part 2. So part 2 is kind of I shouldn't talk about, right? So without spoiling, there are lots of parts in that game where I didn't want to do a thing.
Yes. Yep.
And I had to do a thing. And I feel like the game was kind of like making me feel terrible the whole time. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I've that's been what I've been diving into, and it's making me think about violence in video games a lot. Actually, that's what always been on my mind, is like how violent that game. Like, and I don't necessarily mean it in a negative way, but what do you think? Like, you've all played it, right?
I haven't, because I've been waiting to actually start and finish Last of Us Part 1. But I've read a lot of commentary, and like, you're not alone in that sort of contemplative. I mean, what I understand is what's unique about this game is it wants to say a thing about violence and attitudes towards othering and being violent to people, while still being a video game that sort of prizes and like rewards, and forces you to just do video gaming, which is pew pew, headshot, blood, right? Like,
yeah, and I think it's that next sort of step in that kind of thought process, really. You can play any first-person shooter, and no one gives a shit that you've just blown someone's head off. You move on to the next one. The character doesn't have a thought about it. They don't worry about it. The Last of Us.
They can't have a thought. They have no head.
Exactly. The bloke next to him doesn't give a shit.
Shouldn't have got you. I love it.
The Last of Us, it does make you think about those things. It does make you feel uncomfortable. It does want you to reflect on that, and the whole kind of story builds towards that with the decisions that the characters kind of take. Is it perfect in its kind of representation in sort of what it's trying to do, and then making you just kill a load of people? No, absolutely not. And you can lean into one of Naughty Dog's other games like Uncharted, and Nathan Drake kills thousands of humans with not even a care in the world. They've kind of taken another step in sort of their storytelling to consider it and still kind of understand, well, we need to kind of sell a video game, and we haven't figured out how to evolve the mechanics of what we're trying to do past having to do these things. But they've started that kind of conversation around that, I think, and I think that was part of why I liked it, because it was a game which made me feel uncomfortable. We talk about movies and TV shows and other experiences, just like, actually, this is a really uncomfortable scene, but it's made me think about this. It's made me kind of reflect in this way. It's made me read these characters differently. We don't really have that a huge amount in video games, and I think it's kind of just taken that next step almost.
I think it reminds me actually of Metal Gear 5 Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
So so something in Phantom Pain that they add as a mechanic, which I thought was really powerful, is if you shoot a guy and don't kill them in one shot, they will lie on the ground screaming, and that reveals where you are. Yeah. And like, so on one hand, that's the mechanic, is like, I've given up my stealth. Right. But on the other hand, you're saying, like, actually getting shot with a gun doesn't just like make you, like, it's not just like lights off. It's like quite a painful, horrible experience. And that's what Last of Us 2 does. Is like, you hear people screaming and screaming for their friends who you just murdered, and that feels awful. And it got to the point I was in the point of the game of thinking, can I just get through this bit without killing anyone, because I can't deal with doing this to people. I think it does it well. Like, I think for my experience, I mean, it depends how, like, but then I've often thought about how you could approach that game. You might not have thought the same way I was thinking. Like, I think partly it's because I play the game, like, my wife likes to watch a lot of games like that. Like, she wouldn't necessarily want to play them herself, but she watched the whole of that game, or both of them, right, while I was playing, because it's an incredibly good story. The story is really good, and there were points where she was like, "Oh, this is really bad. Like, this is really, like, I'm not sure I can deal with this right now." And
really, yeah. I mean,
in
I
a
think
way,
that's
it kind of says how
universal.
powerful it is.
I was laying down trip mines for dogs, so. Yeah.
Oh no!
That was the point where I was like, I don't know, I can't do this. I can't shoot that guy's dog. It's the thing that gets me is you get these power ups like the trip mines that, like, you use them on zombies infected first, right? Or oh my, like, the explosive arrows are just brutal.
Yeah,
like, because the first time I unlocked them, and like, because I accidentally shot someone with one of those, like a human, and to see what happened to them, and I was like, oh, and
Kaboom, yeah.
to have all the other NPCs screaming in horror and running away because did is like, oh god, that's, you know, I think that's really powerful. Like they did, I don't know, that game is really in the forefront of my mind. I guess because I spent so long playing all those games in one row. But holy cow!
I mean, I think that's sort of the cul-de-sac that the industry has got itself, which is like you have people who want to say real things, who understand the tension between gameplay, gonna shoot some shit, and narrative and plot. Shooting shit has consequences, and like from the like super like bird's eye view, there's almost no game that doesn't just severely fail that disconnect, because it's like, actually we don't know how to do gameplay that is compelling while engaging with these themes. And that's why like there are a bunch of people who are like, hey, Last of Us 2, fuck you, like you can't make me do all of, because you're making me do gameplay things and then telling me I'm a bad person for doing them. That's stupid. And then the flip side of that is, oh right, gameplay requires me to do X, and X is problematic, and you're making me question that. And I think the Spec Ops: The Line is probably one of the best example early, from at least my experience, one of the landmark games which did sort of towed this line of this is what gameplay demands, but also if we think about it, it's bad. And we're at this weird positioning where game development hasn't figured out how to, if you want to be sort of, if you want to design around these problematic elements, how do you make the game interesting and like people want to play it? We just haven't figured out how to engage with these topics while being like, these topics aren't neutral. And like the controversy in Last of Us 2 is exactly that, which is we get it, but also it's a game.
But it's like the thing that, and like this could be the way they designed it, and if it was, that's incredible. I found myself like it's one of these games, it's so long, like, and you were talking about like the compulsion to discover everything. So like I played The Last of Us thinking like, okay, like, right, the designers clearly want me to go in that building, so I'm not going to go in that building. I'm going to go search over here because there'll be like a bandage, and I'll pick up a bandage, and I've got like, and there's a letter, and this amazing universe where everyone panics and writes everything they're thinking down on a piece of paper and then puts it down before the apocalypse. But I love that stuff. Do you
not have a COVID journal?
But yeah, I shouldn't. I didn't leave a note in my office when I left. Like I should have left a note saying that we're, you know,
that would have been a good idea. Yeah, a real creepy note.
A note that like didn't really say what you were feeling, but sort of painted a vague picture, because that's what you would do.
The combination of the safe is your birthday.
Yes. Sorry, I interrupted you for a bad joke. Continue.
So I found myself, when I wasn't playing the game, thinking about the combat is so interesting. I was thinking about how I could kill people. Like that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like, oh, I've got this awesome weapon that I just unlocked. That's going to be really cool in this situation that I next meet these people. But the thing you end up doing is it's horrific. And then you kind of go, like, for me, I went through the thought process of like, that's horrible. Why am I thinking these horrible things? And then really that's the whole theme of the game.
Yeah.
And so if they want, like, was that the thing they wanted me to think?
Probably. I mean, I think this is one of the problems you get with media in general, is so like for example, I don't want to open this can of worms, but I'm going to, like movies like Fight Club and Scarface, which are like the quintessential like dude in his 20s dorm room poster movies missing the point of the film type things, right? Like, so when you celebrate Scarface because boy he was badass, and you don't get the whole point of the movie is the last 10 minutes where it all blows up in his face, literally. or Fight Club, where this is about toxic masculinity, not celebrating it. But actually, there's like a ton of media that like is commentary, but then there's this like large subset of its fans, maybe possibly the majority, that is not getting the intended message.
It's
and
like
you're
12-year-olds playing Grand Theft Auto. Because Grand Theft Auto is a really good commentary on like modern life. But to some people,
I think I was 12 when I played GTA 1.
Yeah, like so GTA 5, or like for example, like it's
I'm being needlessly difficult.
I imagine the original GTA was the same.
Yeah, but also I think that's exactly proving your point, which is when I played GTA 1, it was fun to just be this little sprite who tried to steal cars and like really failed at being a criminal. Because boy, that Liberty City in that game, hard. To be 3 different versions of that to get things. No, I used cheat codes. I have no idea. I think in the entirety of my gaming career, I doubt I could have passed GTA 1 properly. But yeah, you're right. Like it's about this like trade-off of trying to make your point, and I think the key that's missing is I think, and we're getting there now, is understanding that there are people who will misunderstand your point and take like satire critique at face value, and how do you deal with that?
We don't have an answer.
There's no answer to that one.
I'm glad The Last of Us took us there. Dave, we'll throw the question to you. Is there anything that you played recently which has kind of influenced maybe where you want to take either making it at home or just influenced you in general, I suppose?
Yeah, no. So I have been playing with a friend cooperatively Divinity 2 Original Sin.
Ooh, I've never played that co-op.
No, I've never played it full stop until this friend. We'd been playing quite a lot of Total War Warhammer together cooperatively, and then he was like, and that was very early on in lockdown. We were playing that together because obviously we weren't seeing anyone, and my friend lives in a flat on his own, so it was like a really important kind of social outlet. And we'd chat, and like that was like the main thing. It was a bit like why Sean and I play board games a lot, I suppose, is just to have something to do whilst you're chatting, like, right, to build a conversation around almost as much as anything. So,
or just like fill the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse to meet up with someone.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, we could sit and chat, and we did often. But like when you've got the game running in the background, that kind of thing. So we moved on to Divinity 2. I'd never played it. He suggested I might like it. I'm turn-based. Like, because it's a turn-based RPG system, so for combat, so I like turn-based stuff because like my reflexes aren't the best part of my gaming skill set, as you can probably tell.
So the next game is going to be a turn-based platform.
Yeah, write that down, Sean. So like I've been enjoying that, and the thing why it's as much as enjoying it and chatting and co-op and stuff, but why it seems appropriate to answer is obviously there's a lot of dialogue in it. There's a lot of like branches, like extra options and dialogue because of who your character is. They're different traits, they're different skill sets. It's your usual kind of branching dialogue stuff, but with extra layers on top. And it's all voice acted, so I mean, as much as anything, it's aspirational. Like, there's no way we could do that. Like, there's just no way, unless Sean and I develop a penchant for excellent voice acting, which I don't think either of us are gonna do. Right?
I mean, you got Lucy to do various versions of female and male, and like Ben can also do the same.
So between the 5 of us, do you think we're covered?
To be honest, I mean, just make a very small microcosm.
Well, we've probably only got like 5 characters anyway, right? So like,
Yeah.
done. Like you guys are free for the next couple of weeks, right? Like, so we're
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nothing to do
pro
at all,
bono, maybe
obviously.
not, but yeah.
But yeah, it's hugely impressive to hear, and it does bring it alive, you know. And I kind of understand why, like, big AAA's are able to do it. It's amazing, it's wonderful, and players love it. But you know, as much as that, there are other things around that dialogue system. The fact that it's cooperative and you can listen in on other people's conversations, or you can be halfway across the map doing something else, like, you know. And I could miss conversations that then he has to fill me in on because I've missed it completely, or he's made decisions that actually have a major impact on what we're doing, and I wasn't there because I was, you know, messing around. Yeah, like usually it's rushing around trying to open every pot and crate, and, you know, for 2 gold, right? Like the usual RPG.
Yeah, but because you're playing game the way games.
Game. Yeah, and he's actually running the story. But yeah, so that's like it's a roundabout answer, but the ancillary stuff around the conversations and around the branching narrative, the little tweaks, are the things that I've been impressed by and have made me think, is there something we can, you know, do on our side through Ink and Unity, which are the 2 programs we kind of use for our writing, that kind of obviously don't go as far as what they're doing in Divinity, but, you know, what I can take inspiration from. So, you know,
Excellent. Yeah.
that's been it.
Nice. Good. Lucy, we'll jump to you now.
Patiently waiting in the wings.
I never have anything interesting to say.
Mate, you
so-
played all the games. You
only
normally
have
played every
everything
game
to say.
in
Like,
existence.
you play like 17 games a week, and you're casually like, here's a game that's super interesting. Here are 3 things that you want to know more about, but also I have several other games, so look it up. Like, it's great, but like, I won't stand for you pretending like you aren't interesting.
Okay, in my head, I have nothing
Okay.
interesting
Yep.
to say. But anyway, yeah, thank you for the vote of confidence.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
for this, what's one game that you've played that you've taken inspiration from? Ooh.
Tetris 99, I'm a pacifist, and I can't be bothered to learn the system, so I just play Tetris, and then everyone gangs up on me and get knocked out.
But you get up
Yeah.
again.
No, I only play it now and then, and then I just think, I'd
Love
rather
that
just be
slow
playing
roll.
some
That was
Tetris.
great.
Seeing that many people playing Tetris at the same time, it's just like,
It-
oh look, there's
it's
99
always
people.
a full
Like,
match. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a good game, but yeah, I'd just rather play vanilla Tetris.
Hey, I was
But-
gonna say, I'm not surprised, Lucy, that your solution is, oh right, the multiplayer bit's kind of meh. I kind of just want to play single player
Yeah.
Tetris.
Yeah, but I unlocked a Luigi's Mansion free skin for the next
Ooh.
time I play Tetris 99, which will be in another 3 months. So yeah, cool. Game I might diverge from your question, Ben, because I don't know if I've taken inspiration from
That's
it.
fine.
But
Talk about what you want.
thank you. I've been jumping around a lot of games, to be honest. Nothing has quite clicked, but one game that did was it's called, let me go into Steam, Willy Morgan and the Curse of Bone Town. And now Bone Town is just, every game should have Bone Town in its title somewhere.
She's
But-
not
yeah.
wrong, folks.
I don't know if that's purposeful innuendo, but there's not really
If
any
it's not,
innuendo
good
in the
lord.
game. Yeah.
There's a lot of
not
other
quite a
names
leisure
than
suit
Willy
line.
out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically a point-and-click adventure game in the style of, well, taking a lot of inspiration from, you know, Monkey Island and
Right.
a lot of the LucasArts games and stuff like that. It's got a, this is like, it's basically 3D rendered, but like
2D
still
plane?
2D-ish. Yeah. It's got this like weird Tim Burton-esque style where everything's like deformed and got these, you know, weird looking shapes and buildings and objects. But yeah, it's a good one of those. It's because there's not many of those, and I love point and click adventure games, and this one does that very well. With I think my brain is just broken at this point, because I do wonder, like, anyone who's coming new to a point and click adventure game, like, do they think in the weird screwed up ways that you have to think, oh yeah, this makes sense, put a hamster in like a microwave? I mean, does that make sense to other people? I don't know, but after
I get what you're saying, yeah.
But it's one of those where it's like, okay, if you have this kind of frame of mind from all the years of playing point and click adventure games, this is very much up your alley. Like, I never had to look at a hint system. I don't even think this game has one. But I never had to look at a walkthrough or anything like that. So everything just makes sense in the most absurd way, but it's still grounded in reality, which I appreciate from point and click.
Is it grounded in reality or grounded in, like, knowing how these games are absurd?
Both, but grounded in reality.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I just I think that's what good nostalgia, like, so point and click is kind of a nostalgia genre, and like that's a great thing for the developers to understand that, like, some current 13-year-old is never going to make this connection, but anyone who's played, King's Quest or Space Quest or any of these sort of precursors will immediately see this connection, and that's worth writing, because yes, you're not going to capture all of your viewers with this, and they'll be like, what? But like, if you're building something on one of these sort of antiquated genres, for lack of a better term, just like one of these genres that just has not stood the test of time as far as being in the prominence, then it's okay to just be like, yeah, if you've played these, you'll get this immediately, and if not, sorry. And I think that's the way you, like, keep these things in the rotation versus trying to, like, develop around all the age groups.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned nostalgia, because a lot of the humor, I don't know how I feel about this, a lot of the humor in, like, modern point and click adventure games is referencing old point and click adventure games.
Like, it's recursive?
Yeah, and it's like, I don't mind it, and I get a chuckle out of it because I understand it, but if I don't get the reference, I fail to see how that would make you laugh, or you just be like, what's going on, So, like,
are you cornering yourself to being a dying breed because not everyone who's played a point and click adventure will buy yours, and even if they do, they might not immediately get the reference, and then the joke falls flat, and then I don't have the urge to keep playing?
Yeah, but it's a fine line to walk, but I think they do it well. They've got decent voice acting in it. It's about 4 to 5 hours long, which is like my perfect time for a video game, but I do wish it was a bit longer in this case, because I was really enjoying it, and I can't imagine, like, how taxing it would be on a team. Imaginary Lab is the name of the team who made this game, just to make a few extra environments, just to have 1 or 2 puzzles in it, and just have that environment be throwaway after you've done the one thing in there. So I understand why it was short, and it's better. I play a game and it leaves me wanting more, rather than, oh, that went on for ages. The puzzles got really obtuse and difficult, and sort of like how I feel about, like, Broken Age, the second part of it. It's like, I would have been fine if it was just the first part of that game, but yeah, I do recommend it for anyone who's sick and twisted like me and just wants point and click adventures from 90s nostalgia.
It's kind of weird how, like, those games, like, were so perfect for episodic stuff.
Yeah,
like, Telltale did it right, but then there was a lot of, like, mismanagement at Telltale. That they tried to expand so quickly that then has anyone seen the No Clip documentary about Telltale?
I haven't.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, and it's a shame, because I guess I love that model of episodic. For me, and it's very selfish, because for me personally, I have a short time. The time I have to play games means that episodic thing is really nice for me, because like particularly, like, Hitman is probably the new one that they brought out. Not the newest one, not Hitman 2, Hitman 1, but the reboot Hitman that they brought out like one episode every one. That was really nice because every month it was like, here's a new thing, and I could play it for a bit, and then here's a new thing, and
they nailed the release of like maps and goals and like iterative versions of the game.
That's why I prefer it to Hitman 2. Like just that model alone.
It's weird because like I feel exactly the same way. Yet they did Hitman 2 a different way because they didn't succeed with Hitman 1. Yeah,
and to be honest, anyone who actually like really likes and played that game and really got into it would prefer the episodic model. It's just because I mean the initial rollout of that game was controversial at the time because they had it listed on stores, the full game, and then they pulled it, and then very close to release they announced that it'd be episodic, and a lot of more casual gamers, or not even more casual, a lot of people want to know what they're getting for their money, and they would have just preferred to buy the full thing. But in retrospect, it's like I knew I was going to play that game and get it regardless because I saw the potential of it, and it's like this is great. And you could really soak in those levels and just I mean I put over 300 hours into that game.
Hitman 2, I just didn't feel like I needed to. Like I couldn't. I always said to myself, right, I need to play it like the episode. I need to pretend that I've only got this level, and I need to, for the next month I can only do that. And then, but of course, I did the hit, and then I went to the second level, which kind of spoiled the loop of the game, which is I keep replaying this level.
Yeah, absolutely. I was exactly
finished it.
I was exactly the same. Just ran through a level, moved to the next one, ran through a level, moved to the next one.
Well, I spent like 60 hours in Miami, to be fair.
It's funny, we can't have that same self-control, can we? It's impossible.
There's just one more game I want to speak about.
Oh, go on then.
Very quickly, it's very quick because I haven't actually finished it, but it is interesting so far what I've played now. Bear with me. It's an anime visual novel. But if you're like me and you think, not a massive fan of anime, not a massive fan of visual novels, this one's called Milky Way Prince. And what's different about it is it's not your very light-hearted, like kind of usual anime visual novel where you're, trying to min-max and find the best outcome, find your best partner, and court the quote-unquote best person or your most favoured person. It's very dark, this one. It's very surreal. It kind of reminds me of like Doki Doki Literature Club, kind of. Doesn't have that kind. It sort of has like a bit of subversion to its gameplay, but not quite as much as Doki Doki. But it's basically about an abusive relationship, which is a tough, subject. It's tough subject matter to tackle. Not quite sure yet if this game succeeds on that, but I kind of like where it's going. It's very, as I say, it's very surreal. It's very dark. It's very twisted. And so far, it's been handling the subject matter, pretty well. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how far this will push things and where it will go. So I might check in on this maybe next week. But yeah, so far I'm intrigued. I'll say that. Yeah. I'm intrigued.
Nice. Yeah. Good. So to finish us up this week, Lucy, Aadil, have either of you got any kind of final questions whilst we've got Sean and Dave on about making it home? Or what they're going to be up to in the next couple of weeks? Constantly tapping away, changing things.
Yeah, I want to know more about this Celeste dash jump thing.
The
awesome.
stealing bit.
Yeah.
Just the
how do you even? Yeah, but how do you even like recreate that? I know nothing about coding or programming. So.
You're talking about like how to like.
Yeah, just like are you trying to like get that feeling, the exact feeling?
Yeah,
down?
I mean, like so. I mean, this is kind of my process. Like, so like at some point where we were like, okay, we're going to make this a platforming game. So I kind of as obsessively started looking at platforming games and what are people like, what are the best platforming games? What does everyone say this is the best platforming game? And like Celeste was the thing that came up, and I was like, right, I need to play Celeste. So I played a load of Celeste. Luckily, the people who make Celeste like have talked and shared how they do things. So that kind of helps, obviously. And it's a lot of kind of like looking, and developers tend to be quite open at how things work. So like it wasn't so much me recreating things, but just taking the time to kind of search to see how people do things. The thing I find really fascinating about platforming, which I can get really excited about, is like the way you make a platforming game feel good is by making the controls imprecise, right? So you will actually think the controls are more precise if it's less precise. So we do a lot of things in the game where I'm like looking in the past to see what buttons you've pushed. So let's say you're falling down towards a platform and you want to jump immediately. You'll hit the jump button. Maybe you hit that jump button 2 or 3 frames before you actually hit the floor.
Right.
You want to see that jump happen. So what I do is I'm always looking like I research like average reaction times. And so it's like average reaction time in the past. If you hit the jump button, I keep track of that and then jump when you land. So you feel it's precise, but actually it's not. Like I've actually made the game less precise.
Okay.
But it makes you feel like it's like way more precise.
That's sort of like Game Maker's toolkit on this exact subject or something like that. And
yeah.
it's fascinating.
It really is. And like Game Maker's toolkit is a great resource for this kind of stuff. And it I love that stuff. That for me is really interesting.
That's super interesting to me as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact term they call it in that video.
Coyote time is a big huge one.
Yeah.
It's like the fact that if I walk off an edge, you've got reaction time to hit the jump button, and then you'll still jump, so you won't fall.
Yeah.
And so there was some interesting stuff where some people I'd implemented those things in a way that meant people were able to fake a double jump. Because of the way they were tapping jump on a keyboard. Because I was doing all my testing on a controller. You can only push a control button so fast, but on a keyboard you can like tap. And so people were able to double jump to get a higher fall to hit the bellows. So they were getting better. You can't do it anymore, Ben. I fixed that problem. It's out of it. But
that's really funny.
Yeah, and it's a lot of alt tabbing. It's a lot of playing your game, alt tabbing to Celeste, playing it, and being like, "What's going on?" Right. I could speak for 2 hours on the gravity of a jump.
Please
and
do.
How to make that feel weighty.
I mean, that's super. Yeah,
I've got 2 hours.
Next week.
That's our supplemental episode coming up next week. Yes.
I definitely can sympathize with someone misusing a thing, because like one of the reasons why when I first I joined World of Warcraft on the beta and played it for the first 6 months, but my number one memory of World of Warcraft was the fact that if you took the engineering's crafting thing, you could make a thing that was like a telescope. But the game, basically you hit the telescope, it's basically like an item you use, and it has like a 1 second casting time. So you click it, and 1 second you see a bar go up, and then 1 second passes, and then it gives you a zoom in. That's it. Simple item, right? No, because the way the code worked was it was changing your point of view, which meant if you jumped at the split second that the 1 second ended and it zoomed in, it would put you one jump up and zoom in, which meant when you clicked out of the zoom in, you would now be hovering. Which meant that you could, most of the barriers of new content, or like content they had tried around Stormwind, and a lot of the content was blocked from basically by being more than one jump height. But if I jump, use my trick, I'm now one jump set above, and now I can do that actually. At the height of it, you could do it arbitrarily many times, so you could just climb up to the top. But when they stopped it, the first patch was you could only go one jump up. But most of the blocks of like, we haven't finished this content was we'll just make it so you can't jump over it. But if I can jump twice artificially, I fucking explored that. Like, I wish Twitch was around then, because I explored so much of OG WoW that I shouldn't have. And there's also a way of cheating dungeons, like the early dungeons, because you could just go to the end of the dungeon and exploit up and jump to the end point. And like, cool, one. Like, I won't get the experience of fighting all the things, but I'll get that last treasure chest, and it turns out doing that multiple times is better. And like, that type of thing where you must be
next year apply to GDQ. It's going on now. Maybe you can get the surprise slot.
But like, it must be, why I bring this up is it must be kind of a nightmare to try and code around people who are trying to do these things. Just not trying to play your game, trying to specifically break your game.
I mean, yeah, but they are invaluable in beta testing. Like, you know, initially when I was first getting into this, I was like, why are people wanting to break it? Just play the game as normal people do. And then I was like, the longer I was involved with the Pillbug stuff, the more I valued those people, because they were showing us, you know, how it could be broken. And if you stop them from breaking it, if you manage to, you know, then you know 99.9% of people are going to have the kind of experience you're designing.
Right, because if people who are trying to break it can't easily break it, then no one's going to stumble into something that's broken. That's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't thought of that way. I always thought of it as like just curbing those assholes like me, but actually someone might accidentally do this thing, and they might not want that, and that sucks for them.
And I mean, I'm also always in awe of people like creatively finding those things, because that's certainly not how I approach games at all. It's a bit more maybe how Sean does, but like, I am not looking to break any game when I sit down in front of it. I'm not looking to find the angles, the edges, the way it, you know. The steps of which, even just what you just described, like, to find that first time, like, I love that discovery. I love that other people do it. I love that creativity. And when people apply it to our games, I think I'm largely okay with it, unless it does something that is,
like,
you know,
broken.
Yeah, just something that, it's weird, isn't it? Because who am I to be the gatekeeper of their experience? I'm not. I'm just the person who's presenting that experience to them. So I think we're loath to be a bit too heavy-handed. If someone wants to do something that, you know, but I also don't want them to ruin what I think is the core experience of the game, you know? So I think like you're saying with your like missing out the dungeon and just getting the end treasure, like I love the creativity that comes with that. I love, like with WoW, I love seeing people solo dungeons that are supposed to be done with 5 to 10 people, because they found pathing exploits, or they've you know things like that. I think are amazing, but they do kind of stop the core experience of the game. Maybe.
Like, it's one of those things where like you're okay with someone doing it, but you don't want them to be shouting at the rafters, "Hey, why don't you just do this to skip the hard parts?"
Yeah,
it's about trying to make people feel like they've got one over on you. So, like, because if they have that feeling that they cheated the game, that's a really powerful thing. So the classic example I can always think of is, how many people have played Breath of the Wild? Okay, so Breath of the Wild, cool. There's a few. Do you know, like in Breath of the Wild, there's those dungeons where you have to get electricity from one point to another.
Yeah.
And like, there's this big puzzle room. I forget. Was it like this? Like, what was the things you? Those like little puzzle things that you.
Shrines?
Yeah, shrines.
Yeah.
So there was like a shrine where there was this. I could see all this really complicated like system that this puzzle I needed to solve to get electricity from here to here. And then I thought, hang on, I've got a load of equipment that conducts electricity. So I just put all that equipment on the floor in a big line and conducted electricity from where it needed to go to where it needed to be.
Amazing.
I also did that.
Yeah.
I think I know the examples.
And it's a great feeling. You
Yeah.
feel like you've cheated, but they knew. Like they're Nintendo are smart. Like the people who did that knew that was what you could do, and they put that in there, and that's where you've achieved. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of like your goal is to make someone feel like they've cheated you, but like as a developer, but actually.
It's within your purview.
Yeah.
It's not standard gameplay, but it's within the realm of like we saw this. Cool, you figured out this workaround, but like this isn't breaking the rules of the game. This is using the rules to your advantage
creatively. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Good.
I love the shrines in that game, but the bigger dungeons felt a bit more linear,
Yeah.
and it felt
yeah.
like I was breaking the game in a bad way, in the way not intended. Whereas, the shrines
I got to a point where I was
linear.
like, I felt like I broke the game in such a way. I was at a point where I really shouldn't have been there.
Mm.
And so then I could,
Yeah.
and then I like got to a point where I needed to beat a boss to get past that bit, and I was like, well, like, I'm suddenly like I'm way underpowered.
yeah,
Yeah, and so for me and WoW, it's like I'm on top of Ironforge. There's a bunch of abandoned, crashed, like planes that make it seem like there's a flying mini game in this game that doesn't exist.
Yes.
And then like 8 years later, there's a flying mini game above Ironforge. You're like, yep, saw that. And you're like, well, this wasn't at all in the routine that anyone wanted. I was just some asshole doing weird things, which was great. But also, like, one of the things about like these open world MMOs is like the reason why I picked Rogue, was because I wanted, and like I went full like stealth tree, was because I wanted to just see what I could do. Like I was the guy who didn't really want to like stun lock you and like play the PvP thing. I wanted to see more of the game that I probably shouldn't have at my level.
So what you're trying to say is that you're the one who hacked Nintendo. The police are on the way. Okay.
But like, what I like about games is when they like don't punish that. I guess.
Mhm.
So they nerfed the telescope thing, but they didn't like make large barriers or like cut that extra content. Because I know because some friends of mine who I chatted about, they found other ways to get there, and they went back, and nothing changed there. And it was like, but getting back was sort of the point. Was like, yes, our exploit was this weird like telescoping jumping mechanic, which was timing. But if you did it 2 or 3 times, you just could then walk up the hill. And then they were like, cool, we'll break the telescope. It's like, well, you're not changing the world, so we'll just find another way to get 6 feet up.
The worst feeling in the world is an invisible wall.
Yes.
Of like you get to a point where like they just put in you can't go past here, and then it feels like if the mechanics allow you to get there, you should be able to get past or there should be a happy Easter egg there waiting for you.
Yeah, which is again like I think it was very prescient that like it was very clear they didn't want us there. Like I got GM talked to. Like, and again, this is the first 6 months of WoW, right? Like this is, but also, my friends still went there when they figured out their exploits, and I didn't bother because I saw it once and that was fine. But like I thought it was a really interesting thing that they didn't just delete that content, or like you said, put up this giant wall. They were just like, no, we can hard code. Fuck you. It was just like, that's your exploit. We're patching that away. Cool. And either it was really lazy or really prescient, but the upshot was those friends of mine who were interested in exploring played that game for another few years, trying to find other places they shouldn't be, and realizing that they needed to be a different level or have different skills, and like we're like switching jobs and like different characters to try and figure out how do I trick my way through things. And it was great. It shows, especially in like a living open world, like how many dynamic things are involved, and so they're exploitable, but also that's why they're interesting worlds. Anyway,
Absolutely. Good. Let's almost finish there. Dave, Sean, have either of you got any final thoughts you want to give us on making it at home, or anything else in general, on the processes that you've been through, on what's coming next?
I'll jump in with what's coming next because that seems like the easy one. So yeah, we are looking at like our roadmap for early access. If you're interested, you can see more details on that for the Steam store page and Making It Home. But our broad kind of philosophy for early access is to be releasing a patch a month. Mainly, would there be if there are emergency patch fixes, we'll do those obviously. But mainly, we want to make sure that content comes in a meaningful grouping so that players don't feel like it's being too drip fed, but at the same time there's not massive gaps between and then having loads of stuff dumped on them at once. So that's for anybody who's keeping track, that'll be 3 new panels, for instance, spread across Act 1 and 2, with the occasional sweet teaser of an Act 3 panel. I know. Hold on to your hats. It's going to get weird in Act 3. Yeah, there we go. Nice.
Excellent.
I knew it, yes. So yeah, that's and then there will obviously be the kind of quality of life stuff and fixes that we've talked about here already. And other objectives and challenge mode change ups are the things that are slated for the first kind of patch, and then as I said, once a month, kind of with the same. And I think we're really excited to bring new panels to the game. It was something we were doing right up until the launch of early access anyway, but that's the thing, we're talking about emergent systems and all those kinds of things and synergies. Those are things that really excite us, I think, especially as designers, and we can't wait to have people get to grips with the different panels.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of final thoughts from me, making games is really hard. So we really appreciate all the support that we're getting from all of you here. We love coming onto this podcast, so thanks so much.
No problem, we love having you.
I really enjoy it every time, particularly during this weird pandemic.
Yeah.
I stopped shielding yesterday and went to a Tesco's for the first time in 6 months.
What'd you get at the Tesco's? What was the number one
I had to go to
get
get
at
a
a Tesco's
prescription.
purchase?
Yeah, I went to get a prescription, and I was I saw the croissants, and I was I could probably go get a croissant. And then I saw how many people were around, and I was oh no. I went home.
Oh no!
We ordered croissants from Sainsbury's, so we're getting croissants tomorrow morning in our Sainsbury's order. So all is lost. But I think that's it. It's we really appreciate all the support we're getting. It's like Dave said, every so often, I guess releasing a thing and finish, because we didn't finish a thing, but we released a thing, and that is kind of a release, because it was an intense day to release that, and coming up to launch, even as much as we try not to, I wouldn't say we crunched, but it felt tell me if I'm wrong, but it felt like we were pushing to get that, and even though it was all our own deadlines, and we all we decided this, and it just is, and
deadlines still have a crunch element, by
its very nature.
We had a horrible thing. There was a bug that I found. A streamer. The worst thing happened where a streamer found a bug. Before, and luckily it was an incredibly nice streamer who emailed me rather than just streaming and using it as a way of complaining about a game. Right.
So it wasn't a ladybug.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't work because you call them ladybirds here, but
we run on that. Yeah,
we kind of with Pillbug we asked for that. So yeah, it was hard. And kind of doing that when it comes up to release, and today. I mean, I think today I was looking at. We had another Steam review today, so I was looking, and someone has played the game 60 hours.
Jesus.
Wow.
I mean,
someone else has played it 50 hours. What?
What are these people doing?
Playing games.
Yeah, but it's and that's incredible, and really really nice, and that's why I still feel like we're very lucky to have such a good community, even if it's a small community, that really support us, and it blows my mind that people want us to keep doing this.
Yeah,
and that's super powerful. So that's my final thought, is kind of a melancholy kind of wow.
That's a thank you.
Melancholy. It sounds really celebratory. It's hey, thank you for supporting us, and we appreciate you.
And it's a lovely place for us to finish this week. we will dive into our drinks. I'm going to come to you first, Dave, as you opened us up. Out of the two that you have, do you have a preference?
Yeah, which is unfair, but yes, I do. I definitely prefer.
It's not unfair.
It's not unfair.
It's a personal preference. It's always fair.
It's always fair. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll use that.
If you think otherwise, then you don't understand that preferences are always subjective.
We've got lots of supplementary episodes to come out. Currently, Lucy and Sean are going to be doing an episode all about mechanics in games and jumping.
Yeah,
and
Dave, you and I are going to be doing all about player agency and storytelling at some point. And now Aadil and Dave has got their own episode all about preferences. Good.
Yeah, anyway,
the next few weeks are going to be busy.
Yeah.
What is the thing you were going to say?
Well, what I would have said before even opening the cans, right? Like, I really have enjoyed the hazy raspberry sour. And the pale ale, you know, I just don't think it's quite for me. It was too sharp. It was too much going on under the hood. So I will, you know, and you asked me about, like, am I reaching for it a lot? I'm sure you are keeping track of how many sips I've taken, but basically it's still there, right? Like, it couldn't have been dry, and it's a very hot. You know, I'm in a hot attic, so like, if I'd have felt that, I think I would have been, you know, going at it pretty hard. But no, it's very, like, I can still taste it as I'm saying it, and it's, you know, it's got a really nice vibe to it.
So are you a sour convert then? This was your first sour?
So yeah, I mean, this particular sour is my one and only sour so far in life. Great. Yeah, and I've enjoyed it enough to buy it multiple times. And branch out to other sours. So I suppose as a convert, right. As long as the rest of them then don't disappoint.
I mean, they will. I mean, nothing can be perfect all the time.
Like, your first love is always strongest.
So I grew up. I was raised Muslim, right? And I became an atheist fairly young age, but I still stuck to the, like, no pork, no pig product thing, because that's just habituation, right? And then I was in 2005, I was traveling through Eastern and Central Europe, where, boy, is it hard to get a balanced meal without eating some pig. So I was in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and I was in the, like, old school medieval city, and I was just like I need to eat. And so I was like, fuck it. It's been 2 years since I just told everyone I knew, I don't believe in anything, and yet I still don't eat pig products. This is dumb. So I'm in this pub. It's a medieval style pub, and they are roasting a wild boar on a spit with medieval recipe. Like, this is the way we've been doing it for hundreds of years. And I'm like, I'm gonna have me one of those. It smells divine. And I had it, and it was the best meat experience of my life. Yes, I know what that sounds like. Fuck you, but yes, it was succulent and divine. The problem therein is I have had a lot of pig since then. Boy, is none of it is gone up. People are like, so you finally got, like, you can have bacon. You could have it on the regular. Do you like it? It's like, well, I mean, since then I've become a vegetarian, but also it's like, yeah, bacon's all right. It's nothing like fucking medieval style wild boar, though. In one fell swoop, I became a pig eater, but also became the most spoiled palate man with respect to pig. So it's like, yeah, it's fine. Like, they're people like, this is the best thing I've ever had pig wise. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So you could definitely jump straight into the deep end.
Yeah.
And then ruin everything. Is all I'm saying.
Okay, cool.
You have to report back, Dave, on your what was it? You have a blood
Sour
orange,
blood orange. Yeah, yeah. Well,
I'm super curious about the blood orange. Yeah, please do.
Nice, Sean. Out of the two different old fashions you had, do you have a preference?
It's really hard. Like, they're kind of different things for different times. But like, I guess the immediate answer is the flapjack old fashioned, as being like a really nice example of what in my head I like from a cocktail, is that it's like this evolving flavor profile, like as you drink it and it evolves, and I'm still thinking about it. I can still taste it, and I'm still thinking about all those different notes that I kind of like. I know me and Dave when we went to the party for the BAFTA party thing we went to, and we went to what's it called, Dead Canary.
Dead Canary, yeah.
And I had basically a peanut butter old fashioned, but it's not peanut butter, but it, and like I remember that cocktail, I drank that and I spent the next 3 or 4 months thinking about it until I recreated it at home. And it's that kind of drink where like you're thinking, how does that work, why does that work? And yeah, I love that. Yeah, so that one, that it makes me think more. But then an old fashioned, just like an old fashioned, is so good. Like it's just that kind of, the end of the day, all you're thinking about is that end of a hard work day. You just want to make such an old fashioned. And
nice.
I'm actually upset because Appleton, when I drink it, it makes my left arm go stiff.
What?
And I don't understand why. It's like, I'm not drinking this anymore because
I mean,
I don't know if it's related to my heart or anything like that, but it's the only spirit that has ever done that, and it's weird.
You'll have to try out different. You could move to Chairman's Reserve or something. Another Jamaican or St. Lucian rum or a Barbadian rum or something instead.
Just rare nephews, but since it's the drink to have before you die, you know, like if I'm dying, I'll have that.
Nice.
Hopefully, I'm in a position where I know that I'm going to die and can have a drink before I go. So.
Yes.
Here's hoping.
Aadil, we'll come to you on a lighter note. Which beer did you prefer?
Which if you're going to die, Aadil, which one do you have to drink?
Oh, that's a totally different thing. So, if I'm going to die, it's going to be this one. Surprising no one. The Trappist Rochefort number 8. But actually, I think this week I want to recommend, if you can find it, the Windswept Brewing, the Wolf of Glen Morey, limited run, whiskey cask aged beer. It's not that far off of being as good. Like, I mean, and I say that with reverence. Like, that's a big thing, because this has been one of my favorite beers for over 10 years. Like, when I started getting into craft beers in Calgary, it was like, oh, this is amazing. I moved in 2010 to Amsterdam for grad school, and turns out when you're around the corner, you can get this real cheap. And I was like, well, this is amazing and affordable. And I had that on the regular, and it's just one of my no longer staple beers because it's not as cheap. Like, this brewing is a different thing. It's doing, like I said, it was doing a different thing. It's definitely leaning into that whiskey sort of ale-y flavoring, and that aged sense of ale where you want to feel the strength. While I think the reason why I like the Rochefort 8 is because it's strong. It has these really forward flavors, but it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm having a 9% beer. But actually, what makes the Windswept interesting is that it's sort of leaning into that. It's like, this is whiskey barrel aged beer. You're going to feel it, and it's going to be interesting. And it's, like I said, it's less viscous, but more alcohol-y. And those two things normally I wouldn't be super keen on, but I actually feel like this tastes like a whiskey beer, and that's interesting. And if that's what you're looking for, seek it out. This is a great beer. In general, I like a beer that isn't that, like, so the Rochefort 8 is just a good beer to have in all multiple occasions because it's more rounded. But if you're looking for this type of thing, the Windswept thing is going to do it better.
Nice. Yeah.
Both are great, but I'm going to recommend the Windswept because it's limited run and you can't get it all the time.
Go and get it when you
can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Brilliant. For me, it's quite an easy one. The Electric Bear did a couple of things, but it was sort of a bit of a weak beer, unfortunately. I didn't get a huge amount from it. Whereas the Utopian, whilst they only got that kind of one block of flavour, which did last, it was just done very, very well. It presented all of its flavours. It was very rich. It was really easy. It was a lovely flavour. that I kept going back to because I wanted to. Unlike the Electric Bear, which kind of dried out so much that I'm just reaching for it. I think, I need a little bit more. I want a little bit more. Refresh the palette, see what else is going on. The Utopian, I could have had 3 or 4 of these easily, whilst we've kind of been sat here this evening. So it's a very, very easy pick for me. And I think it's the second Utopian beer that I've had. And I can't remember which was the Rainbock I had a couple of weeks ago. Which again was just a really well-made beer. I've kind of not stayed away from Utopian, but I haven't picked them up when I've seen them because it's just been lager without any adjuncts or anything else attached to it. I'm like, not in the mood for that, won't kind of reach for it. But I think the next time I see kind of their standard core lagers, I'll reach for it to see what they're doing differently, to see how well it's made, definitely now. So they are one to look out for when you are at the bottle shop. So it's a very easy one for me this week. So that is it from us. Dave and Sean, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Where can people find you, and where can they find Making It Home?
Sean?
You can find Making It Home. I'm on Steam and itch.io. So just search for it, or you can go to pillbug.zone, which is our website, and find everything you'd ever want to know about us there.
Good. What about is it Pillbug Interactive on Twitch as well for your Tuesday streams?
So Pillbug Int on Twitch, and Pillbug Int on Twitter.
Nice.
And we stream every Tuesday.
Perfect. Lucy, if people want to recommend point-and-click adventure games to you, how do they do that?
At Juicy Loose 9, pretty much anywhere.
Good. I mean, you don't have to because you've played all of them.
That's what I was about to say, but you know.
Aadil, if people want to chat to you about, I'm trying to think of something interesting, but I've completely gone out of my mind.
But I'm so.
If people want to chat to you,
yeah, it's cool.
about whiskey, bourbon, barrel-aged beers, or their favourite pork products.
Oh man, now you're inviting a thing. I'm at the Omniarch on all of the things except Twitch, where I'm THE_OMNIARCH. Other than that, you can just reach us all at TankedUpCast at gmail.com, TankedUpCast on Twitter, and TankedUpCast on Instagram.
Yes.
And of course, our Twitch is Out of Lives Network, where we stream along with the rest of the team. I've conveniently forgotten to let you, Ben, say where that people can reach you specifically if they didn't want to. So why don't you tell us about that?
I'm too busy. I don't want people talking to me. Go away.
All right, don't contact Ben at Nova_47 on basically the things. So we do this every Tuesday, normally at 8. And we also have Monday, Tuesday noon streams. And if you're seeing us on YouTube, like, subscribe, whatever. But also review us on your podcatcher of choice. That really helps because we've hit a plateau where we just need people to remind the algorithms that we exist and people like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got 5 minutes, go to outoflives.net to look at other articles that our other contributors put together. That's it from us this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Dave and Sean, for joining us as well. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, Anna, for joining me. Thank you for everybody. Thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.
www.outoflives.net